Are you curious about bodies, pleasure, and possibilities? And what about curious about what others are up to on the planet when it comes to pleasure, sex, and play? Have you considered what pleasure can do for your life, your body, and your bank account? Do you know something magical, delightful, and out of this world orgasmic is not only possible for you, but totally available to you? If you're ready to be the magical, sexual, sexy beast you know you can be, and you just need the tools to get there, you're in the right place. Now, here's the host of The Pleasure Zone, sensual movement artist, relationship and sex alchemist, Milica Jelenic.
Welcome, my sweet pleasure seekers. For those of you who are brand new to this show and you're listening now, you have joined the pleasure seekers. And who are the pleasure seekers? Well, it is all of us who are listening, learning, and all in the adventure of pleasure. So if you are new to this channel and you are in the adventure of pleasure in your life and you'd like to know more about pleasure, how to have it, some history, some mystery, some all things to do with pleasure, this is a great resource for you. With over 400 episodes for over 9 years, almost 10 years, there are amazing shows that you can find that I've done, and I have had guests on the Pleasure Zone over all those years. What an honor, and I'm so grateful for all the listeners that enjoy the show, that write to me, that let me know how much they get out of the show, which keeps me going, even on days when I think I'm going to stop. And then guess what? I'll get some really great emails and it keeps me going. So I'm super grateful for all of you guys who are interested and that are as interested in pleasure as I am in facilitating and educating you in how to have more of it. So what I actually do in my life is I do facilitate people to have greater pleasure in their relationships with themselves as well. Relationship with himself and with partners. And the way I do that is through sex and intimacy coaching as well. I am a holistic health practitioner and coach, and I work with people with a variety of different health issues in a variety of different ways. And usually one of the things I really love working with is people who have about 20 different things going on, and they don't realize that all these 20 different things are actually connected, and we can get to the root and find out what is happening and find simple solutions to be able to turn that around. And so one of the things that I find when I'm working with people in their health is that they've come through and they'll often say things to me about their relationship. And sometimes they don't want to talk about their relationship, but it is maybe a question that I have, related to their health. They might say, oh, I've got this issue and this issue going on. I'm like, so how have things been in relationship for you? Like, have you had intimate relationships in your life? Have you had sexual relations in your life? What have those been like? Because a lot of times that is reflective of different things about how we value ourselves, how our bodies respond also hormonally. There is a lot of impact that sex and intimacy has on our health. And today's conversation is all about porn and the effects of porn on libido and a few other things. And one of the things I want to point out is that porn may be defined differently by different people. And in this case, what I'm going to refer porn to as a general umbrella is any media or material you're using in order to facilitate you to have an orgasm or to climax. Or to get you aroused. So if you require something to get you aroused, whether it was designed as pornography or not, if it's what you're using to get yourself sexually stimulated, then for you, that is a kind of pornography. So there are things that I'm sure are not designed for the average person that would be stimulating. As an example, I have a friend who's also a client who has a fetish for things that are highly unusual that most people would not think of as pornography or something they would use to actually have to climax to. an example of it is just having, I'm going to go with the simplest version of theirs, is just having leather goods around, being able to touch them and smell them. And so having that, but also having videos of people doing that is very arousing for them. So that wouldn't be something that you might think of as porn. However, for them, it arouses them, gets them going, and assists them in being able to climax. Now, you can see how that probably isn't under your definition of pornography. Pornography can range, right? So we're just keeping it under the umbrella. If you're using this in order, if you're using any kind of materials in order to stimulate and arouse you outside of your relationship, and these you feel are necessary in order to be aroused, then you might, if you feel they're necessary, then you might have an addiction. If you feel like they're just something that's an addition, then you have an interest, and you might not even have an interest. I know it may seem really strange to you guys that I, who talk about sex and intimacy all the time, I actually don't even have an interest in pornography. It's not, I've actually tried to watch pornography on a few occasions, different kinds, quite mild. I don't find it interesting. What I find more fascinating and more arousing is people when they actually have the energy behind it, if they're enticed. Actually, educational videos on things like Tantra are probably more arousing than your standard, what people would call porn, because those people are actually connecting energetically and you can see it and feel it. And to me, being able to see and feel a connection is far more arousing than just bodies slapping together. Slight pause for a need of a drink. So for those of you who are listening on audio and you're like, where did she go? Just having a little sip, guys. All right. So porn is one of these conversations too, that there is such a mixed bag out there. Some people are huge fans of porn, thinking that porn is a great substitute instead of having your partner go off and cheat on you, at least they're just having porn. The funny and interesting thing is that there are many partners who feel that the use of porn is, in fact, kind of like cheating. You might not know the person, but this also falls under how do you define cheating, because everybody's definition of cheating is different. And there are people who define that there is no cheating because cheating involves ownership and we don't own people. So you can kind of see how the wide range of what is cheating, what is pornography is really wide, and what the purpose of using pornography is also really wide as well. All the way from feeding an addiction, an extreme end, to being able to just maybe educate yourself. And I want to be really clear that pornography is not education at all. If you think you're using pornography to learn new skills, you are not. I can't emphasize that enough. I'm going to take one thing as an example. So I lived with somebody who secretly watched porn when I would go to bed, and he was like really into it for a really long time. Actually, I did that a few times, but anyway, I lived with a few people who had a thing for porn. And whatever, I guess they needed it. I don't know. Did they? We'll find out today in this show. But in this case, I remember waking up to some interesting noises coming off the TV from where we lived. We didn't have a bedroom door. It was quite an open concept space. And I looked up and all I could see was this giant butthole on the TV screen. It was a pretty big TV at the time in the early 2000s. Giant butt with giant butthole on screen. And there was penetration happening with no lubrication, no preparation, nothing else happening. There was this assumption that, like, so to me, right there is that lacks finesse. Like, there's nothing attractive about that. And that lacks education to the max. Like, if you are having anal sex with zero preparation and zero lubrication, I don't know what you're thinking. Unless you're really into having maybe anal tears. Maybe you're into anal tearing. I have no idea. Our anuses are not designed to do what they do in in pornography. There are things that happen in porn. I know this not because I watch porn. I've really only seen, I think, like one or two porns in my life, but I have watched documentaries about the making of porn, and I've watched documentaries on all kinds of things to do with the sex industry. And so that's actually probably where I get more of my insights on porn from, is from the documentaries. And also from sex and intimacy coaching, we watch educational videos, which are very different feeling. They feel educational. They're very different feeling than the porn videos or the porn industry, what they put out. They might even be made and produced by the same people, but the energy and the feel behind them is very different. So pornography in and of itself can become highly, highly addictive if there are a few things going on. Usually if you're having kind of a low as the porn addict, if you have low self-esteem and you're trying to find a way to feel sexy, you might be using porn as a means to be able to connect with the players or the actors in the scenes, like as if you're creating um, scenes and fantasies as if you have relationships with them. You don't have relationships with them unless on the very off chance you happen to be dating a porn star and you're watching your lover on screen, and you're into cuckolding, and and that's your thing. You're like a cuckold, so you're all about that. Maybe not. I don't know. So if you're finding that you need porn, and it's the one thing that gets you through your day, and you go to it, you wake up in the morning and you're like, I gotta get my porn hit, and you get your coffee and your porn hit, you climax, you get to work, you have to go to the bathroom, use the private bathrooms. Maybe you're working from home, so now in between meetings you gotta bring out the porn again and climax again. I'm all for having as many climaxes as your body is going to serve you in the day. I'm all for that. I'm not all for having to jack your body up with porn. And what I mean by that is, like, porn can get your adrenaline going for a few reasons. It'll present to you ideas and images of things they're not realistic. And then what it'll also do, say you are at work and you're doing it in a bathroom or something, you might find that your adrenaline is going because you might get caught. So you might be an adrenaline junkie, and that might actually be more what it is. And you're the adrenaline junkie part of you is really into the porn because it's getting your adrenaline high going and rocking. I was recently chatting with somebody that was saying that they had a friend who watches porn like all day long on the side while they're working from home. And they got porn on the side, working from home, jacking off like as often as possible. And they think they're the king. And I'm like, you're so not the king. You actually probably have no capacity to connect with a real living human being. And you're actually a wounded child who is trying to get frustration and anger and all kinds of things out, and using pornography as a means to do that. Now, if you're doing that intentionally therapeutically, maybe that would be helpful. The chances are it's really unconscious and subconscious, and you're not using pornography as a way to be able to bring healing to yourself. And I do understand that for some people, having like a little hit of porn to give them ideas to get them going during frustration, yes. And it's not interfering in your work, cool. If you don't have like a porn screen open while you got your work screen open and you're distracted by the porn and you're, jacking off while you're working, if you're at that level, you need to consider that you might have a problem. It would just be like if you're same thing as if you're drinking alcohol the whole time you're working with clients. If you're working from home and you're drinking the whole time, You might have an alcohol problem. Addiction is addiction. Doesn't really matter, what form it takes. And everything we know that, because we've talked about this before on this show, that all addictions have started from a place of trauma in the body, right? Your soul you have a trauma, your soul gets clouded, then there's fears, and there's false beliefs, and then there's facades, and then there's addictions, which aren't always obvious, like the porn and the whatever. It has to do with personality traits as well. We're going to talk more about this, though. We're going to head off to our first commercial break. You're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet, sweet pleasure seekers. Tonight we're talking about porn and the effects of porn on libido. And what is porn? What qualifies as porn? And in the first segment, we discussed, to me, what qualifies as porn is any kind of material, whether it's video or any kind of pictures, like, the magazines of back in the day. Anything that you're using in order to arouse yourself to climax could be considered porn. And as I mentioned, there is possibly, things that you would never consider pornography could be pornography for another person. So in this case, I'm going to use it in a broad context, although I do understand that for most of you listening, some of the broader senses, like I was talking about leather kink, where sometimes it's just about the touch or smell of something that would be arousing, or watching somebody wearing, say, leather could be arousing. So in that case, you could open a magazine where people are wearing leather skirts and leather pants or leather jackets, and that would be just as arousing to you as seeing somebody masturbate for some other person, for example. So with addictions, what happens is our body has a biochemical reaction to the things we're addicted to. So whether that's drugs or alcohol or sex or porn or eating or any of it, in this case, we're talking about pornography addiction, the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that oversees regulating self-control, it actually decreases in size when there are addictive behaviors going on. And so the cause of behavioral addictions like pornography addictions comes from the prefrontal cortex areas being affected, right? So if your brain is being affected and there's something that's, actually decreasing in size, what do you think is going to happen? And I think this is something to consider if you're like, no, I'm not addicted to porn. It's no big deal. Oh, yeah, maybe I have sensory issues. Maybe I don't have control over certain things. It doesn't really matter. But the thing is it actually does, because it's going to affect more than just your love life in the long run. It can also lead to, other addictions, because you can't get your fix. What happens a lot of times in porn addiction is you might have started out watching porn every day and you're like, oh, I'm just watching normal porn, I'm just watching like threesome porn. It's always funny when I ask somebody, what's normal porn to you? They're like, normal. I'm like, tell me what you think normal porn is. And I love the wide ranging ideas of normal porn that I've heard. Well, just like heterosexual sex, but like with some of this or some of that, or like threesomes. And I'm like, okay, so it's always curious to me what is like considered normal porn. To me, porn is porn, as long as the players in it are agreeing to this. That's, and they're of consensual age and they are consenting. That's one category. Can't even get into the category of things like child porn. That is not even, that's not even on my radar to even discuss, or to discuss as even a possibility, because all those people should be arrested. And beyond that, I won't even get into my opinions on what should happen to people who create child porn. So that is a whole other issue. I'm talking about, in this case, adults who are choosing to create porn. They're not being pulled into it by, human trafficking or something like that. We're talking about consensual porn. Oh, that's the problem. I'm going to get sidetracked by discussing the porn industry. But what I really want to talk about is the addiction to watching this industry. And the thing is, I think it should be considered that you need to maybe have your brain go off like mine does and look at, who are these people behind the scenes? Who's creating this? Are these people being dragged into this? If you don't even have 1 ounce of consideration for the people that you're watching, I don't even understand. I don't actually understand that at all. Even when I watch shows like on, say, like YouTube, and people have put their kids in videos or something, I often think like, is this something that is okay? Is this person being dragged into this? Is this, what's the scenario here? When I say kids on video, I'm talking about kids with clothing. I'm not talking about child porn. That's not even part of it. So, yeah, that's a gross thought. And that just really sent my brain off on a whole other tangent. So if you are a porn addict, the chances are you're looking for something more stimulating and more stimulating. And you might have started off with regular porn. We're going to go with hetero porn, or gay porn if you're gay, or standard sex for whatever whatever your preference is. But then you might have veered off, and you might identify as heterosexual, but now you're watching gay porn and you're like, whoa, you're really into it. Now you're starting to go, okay, if I'm going to watch gay porn, what else can I watch? I'm going to watch gay porn, and I'm going to watch some gay porn with kink, and then I'm going to watch gay porn with kink with people driving in cars having sex. Now that sounds like a good idea. No, okay, if I can't get off on that, now what do I need next? Oh, maybe something more extreme, like violence. Oh, let's see like people being violent to each other, even though and they haven't consented to it. Consensual non-consent, that's for babies. Let's move on to the hardcore. There are I think it gets progressively more addictive, so you need a bigger hit. Just like in drugs, it's like you might have started here. You might have started on sugar as a child, and then as a teen you started smoking pot, and then you started drinking alcohol, and then you were doing pot and alcohol, and then all of a sudden you start snorting cocaine, and then you're like, how did this even start? Well, it started off with your sugar addiction as a child. You see, the addiction grows. And the pornography addiction can also grow to the point where now you're not functional and it's affecting your whole body, your entire health, your mental health, your physical health, your spiritual health. It's affecting all of it. And it's important to backtrack and figure out how and where did this start and why do I have this? What was I looking for when I first started looking at porn? What was I looking for that I thought that porn was going to fill for me? And then as you start to figure out what that was that you were looking for, then it's a really good time to go cold turkey on the porn and start to look for those qualities in yourself that you were looking for in porn. And it's like you wanted something to arouse you. Well, now go figure out what else arouses you in the world. Maybe jogging arouses you. Maybe gardening arouses you. Something else is going to arouse you. You need to do something with your body so that you're getting, some happy hormones running, so that you're going to get positive feedback to your body. So your body will choose to try something else rather than go for the addiction and go for the adrenaline rush of whatever the porn was giving you. So you can see how, it could easily get extreme. Yes, and I know some of you are going to be listening to this going, well, no, whatever. Porn is fine. Porn might be fine in your relationships. That's cool. I know a lot of people who have had relationship breakdown in a big way because of porn. A lot of times what will happen is one of the partners, whoever is the porn addict, they might have a sex drive, but the sex drive is only geared towards watching porn, and it can't be translated over into relationship in a loving and kind way. And if it is being translated somehow over into relationship, sometimes it's just so that you can let off steam, we'll call it, right? It's just for release. It's not for connection. So porn addiction can feel gross. And I know that when I was with somebody that I would say was porn addicted, because they would just be up for all hours of the night and then be late for work because they were watching porn all night. When that was happening, there was like zero connection when it came to us personally. And maybe I was a little young to be asking for really sophisticated spiritual sex, and that's quite possible. I was a little bit ahead of my game. I think in my early 20s, I was looking at Tantra and wanting to be able to connect spiritually with a partner. I wasn't really interested in having meaningless sex. And then I was like, well, it seems like everybody my age has meaningless sex, so I might as well just have meaningless sex. Whatever, can't find anybody that will work with. And then tried to have sex with somebody way older than me, and that was also meaningless. And so, but I got a child out of that one, so that was okay. And then now I'm with a partner who actually is on par with me. So it's helpful to have a partner who is willing to learn and is open to learn, and is also willing to connect in whatever ways you need. And sometimes it takes work, guys. I wouldn't say that it happens right off the bat. You might even have that at the beginning, and then there can be lulls, and that's normal as well. So pornography doesn't have to be your solution to a lull in a relationship either. And sometimes people use pornography as a solution to a lull in their relationship, like, well, my partner doesn't want to have sex with me, so I'm just going to go bring out the porn. Almost like it's like a punishment to the other person. Well, if you don't want to have sex with me, I'm going to have sex with myself and watch porn, and now you're going to be left out and you have nobody and nothing, and I'm going to disconnect from you and I'm going to check out. It's weird. It's like a subconscious thing. And so if that's going on in your brain, and you have to be pretty aware to know if you are checking out with porn. And if you are checking out with porn and you want to change that, and you know that it can change, and you know that it's actually way more sexy to have a real living partner in front of you that is curious and willing to explore and communicate. Fantastic. Talk about that with your partner so that you don't land yourself in a porn loop where you're getting back to addiction. That can easily, why I say getting back to addiction, because the chances are you probably had some kind of porn lust for porn addiction, or porn curiosity at some point when you were younger, and then there may be a lull in your relationship when you're older, and you use that as a crutch. just kind of like when people have addiction to drugs, they might have, tried those drugs when they were younger. They might have tried all kinds of things when they were younger, might have maybe got off the drugs, maybe had a trauma, or maybe something happened in their life, and then the drugs came back. It's no different. And when you are, just like when you're on drugs or alcohol or, shopping addiction, or porn addiction, it's really hard to connect with other people. Usually there's a whole lot of shame going on. There's like an inability to connect with the fact that you do have an addiction, and you're just not able to connect with yourself. So it's really hard to connect with others. And if you can't connect with your partner, that is going to create a really massive blow to the relationship. It's going to kill your libido. It's also going to kill your partner's libido, because they will probably not find that very attractive. All right, we're going to head out for our next commercial break. You're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Interested in masturbating for money, copulating for consciousness, and pleasuring on purpose? 21 Days of Sexual Magicism with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic is an exploration of tools, processes, and actions that you can use to create more for your life, your body, your money inflows, and so much more. Graduated learning for all levels of interest. Learn at your own pace via video classes or join the yearly live class. Take a peek at www.milicajelenic.com.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@MilicaJelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, sweet pleasure seekers. Tonight we're talking about the effects of porn on libido, and there are actually quite a few studies done on this, so you can look up if you want to see any kind of medical studies that have been done on this. Just literally type in how porn affects libido, scholarship studies, whatever, scholar studies, sorry. I do like definitely looking at scholar studies, and there's quite a few that popped out. One of the very first ones that popped out was from the Mayo Clinic that I was looking at, and there was another one that is from the scholarship archive by Brigham Young University. And I'll give you guys a little read from the excerpt. So I also want to let you know that this particular paper had been withdrawn and has been withdrawn, so there might have been updates on it, or there may be new information on it. So the title of this paper is called Pornography's Effects on the Brain. It's a review of modifications in the prefrontal cortex. The author The scholar is Kendra J. Muller, and this is from the Brigham Young University. So and I won't read the whole abstract, but I'll just give you a little bit of this. So pornography use has exponentially increased in the past 10 years. Actually, it's more like in the past 25 years, because this study was done in 2013. So most believe pornography use is largely harmless behavior, although sexuality is innate. Hypersexual behavior, such as pornography use, has become increasingly commonplace. And then they also talk about addiction research and how addiction, you can tell when you look at a prefrontal cortex, the size of it, whether there's been addiction or not. They've looked at a lot of different brains, so they can kind of indicate that. The prefrontal cortex, which oversees regulating self-control, decreases in size when exhibiting addictive behaviors. And then we'll just skip through a little bit of that too. So the effect on the prefrontal cortex has been shown to be particularly marked in participants with pornography addiction. And that was written by, that little quote was by two people's studies, Kuhn and Galanat in 2014. Pornography use has been shown to decrease the gray matter of the prefrontal cortex. Compared to baseline brains that were not addicted to pornography. So what does that mean? So when the prefrontal cortex, the gray matter, has decreased, the decision-making ability also decreases. So the part of the brain dedicated to decision-making and self-control shrinks. And that actually might be why things like addictions are really hard to get out of. And that's also why pornography can be so addictive, is because you can't actually decide anymore. I do remember reading another study somewhere, and I don't have a quote on that likened porn addiction to cocaine addiction, as it affects the same prefrontal cortex in the brain, and the decision making starts to just decrease dramatically. So if you can't make decisions and you stay in your loop, it can be really hard to get out of that. So just as somebody who has a drug addiction or any other kind of addiction, we know that there's a mental health issue going on, and we know that that person can probably use assistance. But what we also know about addiction is that when somebody is an addict, they need to acknowledge that themselves. You can try your best to tell them, you can do intervention even. That doesn't mean they're going to listen until they acknowledge it themselves. The chances of them getting out of it are really hard. And the irony is the decision to acknowledge that is really hard to make, because the prefrontal cortex and the gray matter is decreased. So their ability to make those decisions is also decreased. Ugh, how much irony can we have in a day, and how frustrating can that be, right? So how do you get somebody that you love, who you can see? How can you redirect the energy? I think that's a better question than I can ask. If you're in a relationship with somebody who has porn addiction and you've noticed it and you're feeling disconnected to them in relationship, and you're like, hey, just wondering, what's going on? Are you finding that are you feeling like you have any libido these days? Like, are you even attracted to anything? Do you get stimulated by anything? And if they're like, no, I'm not, but you fully know that they have been watching porn, because you're finding evidence of it everywhere, like wherever you find evidence of it, porn videos around the house that have been opened and left in the DVD player or whatever, because that's happened in my life before. So if you happen to find those things and the person's in denial, you have two choices, right? You can either show them and say, like, I saw this, I know I wasn't watching this, and I know we don't have any ghosts in the house that have the ability to stick the DVD in the player to watch this. So just curious, what's going on? Like, is this a thing that you need in your life? And if they're like, no, I don't need it. Okay, cool. If you don't need it, let's put away the porn and discuss what it is that you felt like you were getting out of the porn. Like if you felt you were getting attention, alone time, like what did you need from that? So partners often don't want to discuss these things with each other because it can sound a little bit condescending. It can also sound like you're trying to coach them, which can be annoying in a relationship if your partner tries to coach you. If you need intervention and somebody to come in and ask questions, get, a really clear understanding of where your relationship is at, do, a chart for you guys on like, where are you getting your stimulation and your all of your fulfillment from sexually? Is it from porn? Is it from your partner? Is it from your own brain? Is it from work? Like, where are you getting fulfillment from? And hopefully, anybody who's willing to engage in coaching is going to be honest enough to say where they're getting that from. And if they do say, you know what, majority is I'm getting it from porn these days, and I just don't know how to relate to my partner, awesome. You're already halfway to being a winner because you are willing to acknowledge what's going on that's not working. And now we just have to find solutions that will work for you. And it's never a one set deal. It's always very individual to you, your lifestyle, what works for you and your partner. So consider that if you do know you are overdoing it on porn and you want to stop and you'd like support in that, you can either talk to addiction counselors because they are absolutely geared to talking even about things like porn addiction. You can talk to me. You can talk to your partner for sure if you're open to that. And if your partner doesn't know what to say or do, find a sex and intimacy coach, find a relationship coach. There are lots of them on Inspired Choices Network. You can find a lot of us here. And for some people, it might be talking to their spiritual advisor, like a priest or a rabbi, and that's fine too. Like there are resources out there. And the number one thing is to first acknowledge, I got a problem. And then number two is to understand that you need to be able to hand it over. You can absolutely use all the steps from a 12-step program and relate it over to porn addiction. It's absolutely can work. And you can do your own method as well. And you can seek out professionals who have some guidelines that can help you. And not everybody goes through all the same stages at the same pace. So working at your own pace and being able to find a lot of times what happens is being able to connect with people becomes so awkward you don't know how to do that anymore. So one of the first things to do, to me, if you have porn addiction, is shut off the porn, eliminate it completely, just like you would do drugs, and go inside and find yourself first. And as you work on you, and as you start to understand you, and as you start to understand whatever that was that triggered you to become a porn addict, whatever that was, that trauma that occurred, start to heal it, and then you'll be able to work through that, and then you'll be able to connect with your partner in a much more mature, healthy way. And you know what? It's not that you're going to necessarily film it, but you can certainly make your own porn in a way, right? You can get excited. You can bring in some of the things that you found were attractive and ask about that. I think that's something to note as well, is that if you are finding that you're watching a lot of porn because maybe your partner isn't open to having conversations, maybe they're scared, maybe they don't know how to talk about sex, maybe they don't even know what they want, maybe they don't actually like sex, maybe they've got a lot of their own healing to do. There's a lot of reasons why somebody wouldn't want to have sex, and this doesn't make anything wrong with them. There's a lot of things. There can be internal and external things going on. There can be all kinds of things that need to be healed. So whatever that happens to be, they're not wrong about not wanting to necessarily have sex, and you're not necessarily wrong for wanting to have sex. But if you're using porn as your only outlet and you don't want to actually look at the issues that are right there that can be collaboratively worked on, in partnership and solo, if you're not willing to look at the things, you're not going to have a sustainable relationship. It will die. It will, even if you live together forever, the relationship is dead. It's like zombies. And you're just pretending to like walk around alive, but you're not really, but it's just in the periphery. it's like when people say, well, we're just roommates. Well, I know people who have been in their 80s and 90s and not been still like roommates. They've still had intimacy in their own way, right? Whether it's cuddling or doing their own thing, they will find ways to connect. And to me, that is where it's at. Like, you want to still be able to, decades down the road, be able to connect and not look back and have all of your thoughts and ideas be related to what porn was what you were trying to gain or learn from porn, and not feel satisfied in your relationship. Porn creates a lot of comparison, and it's really unhealthy for the comparison, for sure. So if you are using it, use it for curiosity to get some ideas, then put it away, discuss it with your partner, or watch it with your partner. And if your partner's not comfortable watching it, then maybe there's a conversation to be had there as well. If you can watch it with your partner and then you use it as like an ideas sounding board, that's a little different. Still not my favorite methodology, but I can understand for some people, they maybe don't know how to do some things. Again, porn is not for education. It might give you some ideas, like even, hey, we don't really know how to have anal sex, so we're going to watch porn on anal sex. Not your best bet for learning about anal sex. There are actually learning videos on how to do that, and I have audio and video descriptions on how to do that. So a lot of things that you may be curious about and you're not really sure how to do them or what to do with them or how to approach your partner on them, I probably got an episode on that. So just go back and listen or watch some of those episodes so that you can discover how to do that, and or connect with me, because we can get on a call and we can discuss this either solo or with your partner. So we're going to head to our next commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to wrap up the show discussing how this crazy thing called porn affects your libido when we return from this commercial break.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is the Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email. info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet pleasure seekers. Tonight, we have been talking all about how pornography affects your libido. There is tons of research out there that is behavioral science research. So if you want to go and find out about that, if you literally Google, you will find things on places like PubMed. You'll find things on the National Institute for Medicine, the NIM, I think it's called NIM site, the National Library of Medicine. And yeah, so PubMed is one of my favorite places to look for all medical research. It's got really great reports and different, it's just like you can find information on literally anything medical there. So there was a study done in 2015 as well that showed that it was a study for men under 40 who had erectile dysfunction. And one of the things they found was that there's definitely a correlation between pornography use and erectile dysfunction or delayed ejaculation or decreased sexual satisfaction and diminished libido. That has been looked at many times in many different ways, and it's pretty conclusive that most men under 40 who have erectile dysfunction or decreased sexual satisfaction or diminished libido are regular porn watchers and sometimes porn addicts. So one of the things that this research suggests, because during these clinical trials, they did different things to see what would help. And one of the things they did find that helped was just terminating internet pornography use completely. Just stop it. Just turn it off. Stop using it. Just like if you're a Coke addict, you got to go through withdrawal. Just stop the Coke, go through withdrawal. Maybe have somebody with you while you go through that, just to help you navigate the shakes. And your body might go through similar withdrawal from porn as well, because your prefrontal cortex is now like starting to maybe work again, learning how to make better decisions again. So that will start to come back. And one of the things that you can do in the meantime, if you're feeling like I can't stop pornography altogether because it's so part of my world, I don't know how to get turned on otherwise, you might want to switch it over to like educational videos of sorts, just so that, and you can get those are available as well. So sex education videos aren't as sexy, but they might give you insights and ideas into things that you can do to have more fun with your partner. So definitely get off of the porn. And I had mentioned before, if you really insist on doing it, if you really want to have this as like, I can't tell you exactly what to do, just get off the porn. I'd love to be able to tell people to do that. But if you really think that this is working for you, invite your partner in and see how they feel about watching it with you. And if it really turns them off what you're watching, then you might find that this could be one of the reasons why they're not interested in having sex with you, is they might be way more intuitive than you think. And they could be picking up on whatever you're running in your head, these scenarios or these fantasies that you've been watching in porn. And you could be running these scenarios in your head while you're having sex with them. And highly intuitive people can feel that. And it's gross. I'll let you know that right off front. It's like you feel like you might as well not even be there, and somebody's having sex with you, and you're just like you're just a receptacle. So have sex with the person you're with. Be present with them. If you are going to watch porn, watch it for ideas only, and then get the education elsewhere. If you're watching it and you're like, oh, that kink looks really fun, kink porn is not reality porn. If you want really good education on porn, I have a friend who is a BDSM educator, and she's amazing at it. And it's all about consensual non-consent. Her name's Gaia Morissette. She's been on the show many times. And if that is something that you want to do, I would highly suggest taking her courses. So there's a lot of things you can be doing to learn, and that can help you to have much more fun sex than maybe you're having if you're looking to porn to make your sex life better. Porn's not going to make your sex life better. It's going to pull you away from your partner. It's going to create frustration. It's going to create erectile dysfunction in the long run. It's going to create disconnection to your partner. And likely it's going to give you ideas that are not able to be fulfilled, giving you fantasies and ideas that are not realistic. A lot of porn that involves female male pornography, where guy walks up to the door and he's ready to get it on and he just shoves it in the woman. That's not reality, guys. That's just not what happens. People aren't usually waiting there all hot and heavy and ready. And I highly recommend not doing that. Even if you think that's fun, maybe prearrange it as a scenario, but don't just have sex with the random guy who delivers your pizza, because guess what? He could have some really bad STIs and who knows what else. So be smart, be safe, love yourself and love your partner, and show that through connecting with them. Porn's not going to give you a connection, but your partner can. So look to them.
Thank you for listening to The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. The Pleasure Zone returns next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on and tuned in to your body.